And just like that, it is over. Keshawn Davis, hometown performance, Norfolk, Virginia, where he's from. He did a hometown show and he delivered. Him and his brothers were on the show. They all had a turn, all had different levels of opposition. And Keyshawn had the hardest opponent, in my opinion, with Gustavo Lemos. Now, if you guys follow the channel, Gustavo Lemos, it didn't even appear that he attempted to make weight. It looked like he went full Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney mode and was content taking penalty money and or didn't care. I don't know, something was going on, but he missed weight by almost 7 pounds. It was like 6.5 pounds, which is an insane amount because we're not talking about 6 pounds on a heavyweight, right? Like a Tyson Fury, 6'9" guy, he loses 6 pounds. It's not going to make much difference at all. We're talking about in these lighter divisions. To further illustrate this point, you got to keep in mind in the lighter weight classes, this division versus the division above it is not even separated by 6.5 pounds, right? Or it's barely just separated. Like to jump from 135 to 140, that's only 5 pounds. So it's not even separated by a full 6+ pounds. So you're clearly like really in the new weight class at that point. You know, when you get to 140 to 147, that's pretty much the difference. Now, to make things worse for Gustavo Lemos, he got cooked and destroyed, and he carried this significant weight advantage. Now, I'm going to tell y'all straight up, I'm a fair person, I'm a fair critic. I didn't like this fight for Keshawn Davis. And I'm not talking about initially. I'm talking about when it was known and when it was confirmed that he missed weight by a crazy amount. I don't play like that. You know, I understand the fighter wants to still fight. The fighter believes they can still win. But for me, I think that's a disservice to your fighter to put him in with somebody that is that much bigger. Because, I mean, what's the point? What's the point of signing the contract? Everybody says we can make this weight, and then you pull the bait and switch, the old switcheroo. So I don't like fights like that. And I did say in my past video that Keyshawn elected to take penalty money, just like Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia. So at that point, there can be no excuses. Unlike Devin Haney, Keyshawn showed up and showed out. And despite all this pressure, Keshawn Davis performed and looked sensational. To me, this is his best ever performance. He got a second-round stoppage. He was never hurt. He took his time. He didn't really make no mistakes. And it was short. It was like a 2-round. And he had to do it at home with all the distractions. All your brothers on the card, your family. You have family members in the crowd. Your mama's there. Your sister is singing the national anthem. That's just a lot of pressure. So kudos to Keyshawn for getting it done and handling that. Because like I said, for me, if I was the trainer, I ain't let my fighter get in there with somebody who is disrespectful of the actual contract and the weight, right? So ESPN, they put up this graphic, right, just to show you. The fight was supposed to be at 135. This man weighed 141.4. Then they did a rehydration clause, morning weigh-in, right? And he weighed 144.6. The night of the fight, he ballooned up to 155.4. So that's over 20 pounds north of what the weight class is that they're supposed to be fighting. So this man basically in a day, overnight, he rehydrated 20+ pounds. You know, we've seen that with Devin Haney. And like, these rehydrations are getting crazy. Now, with Ryan Garcia, again, when he fought Devin, it kind of worked out for him. He was able to hurt and like drop Devin Haney a gang of times. Gustavo Lemos looked more like Andy Ruiz in the rematch with Joshua, where it looks like something happened in your training camp where you were unserious, so to speak. You know, and I'm not saying this to take away credit for Keyshawn. I just gave him credit. He got the victory. He did everything he was supposed to do and said he would do. So kudos to that. But this version of Lemos that showed up looked very undisciplined, especially with the performance like that. If a person is ballooning up that much weight and putting on that type of stinker of a performance and just getting bodied and dropped by the second round, then I'm going to have to believe that you didn't really train your hardest for this particular fight. And again, this is not an excuse. Keyshawn wins, he advances, he moves on. I'm just merely opening the conversation, the floodgate. The Richardson Hitchens Africa fight with Lemos looked a lot more dialed in, right? But again, the reason I got to give a lot of credit to Keyshawn is because he was up against everything. You're in there with the bigger man, and then you fought him like you were the bigger man, and you dropped him and end up getting the stoppage. So that takes a lot, because now that's what it's come to. I think people are going to keep trying to, you know, finesse and finagle these weight advantages, especially against black fighters and or maybe even Cuban fighters that are hard to hit and skilled. They're looking for any advantage. And we see this all the time with American fighters. But this was a risk, despite my personal opinion. This was a risk that obviously paid off for Keshawn Davis, because he looked very sharp. I mean, this picture looks sus. This looked no Diddy-ish, if I'm being real. This picture looked crazy. Like, why'd the ref jump on the ground like that? Crazy. Like, the ref didn't need to do that. He jumped on, like, you know, like he an action hero. Like, what are you doing? Get down. Get to the chopper now. He did not need to jump on the ground like he jumping on top of a grenade. But whatever. This picture looks crazy. Keyshawn did his thing. And despite my opinion and other people who thought that you don't even just don't give someone the opportunity to finesse you, because again, if people don't feel they can beat you on the up and up, they're going to take PEDs. They're going to try to miss weight. They're going to try to fight dirty in the ring, rabbit punch, hit you low, you know, whatever to win. And that's kind of what we've seen. But Keyshawn fought like a man on fire, a man possessed. Lemos looked, like I said, Andy Ruiz versus Joshua 2. He looked unfocused, undisciplined, and he was getting clipped up. And it was sharp from Keshawn Davis. What else can I say? There's really not much of a breakdown, because there's nothing to break down. It was just an awesome performance from Keshawn Davis. And Gustavo Lemos, you know, I don't know what he had going on, but he looked like a shell of his former self, comparatively speaking, when we're talking about how he looked in his performance with Africa versus how he looked tonight. You know, I don't know what that's about. But now, after seeing it, because I'm one of the people that thought this was a super dangerous fight, because the way I look at it, I don't underestimate anybody. So if a person is missing weight by that much, I don't know if they're doing it maliciously to try to get an advantage, or if they're missing weight because they're undisciplined and they're in horrible shape. I didn't really know what the case was, so I got to take that as a threat. It's like a police officer. If a police officer pulls someone over on a routine stop, the guy gets out, and then they have an object, and it's the shape of a gun, and you can't tell if it's a plastic gun, if it's a BB gun, if it's a real gun. There's no like red tip, orange tip to identify it as a toy. Then you have to take that threat and take it as the highest form of a threat. You're going to have to look at that as that is a potentially dangerous weapon that the person is wielding, or if they have a knife or an object that looks like a knife and they're acting belligerent and, you know, charging you, you got to just take that as the highest form of a threat and neutralize the situation. So that's what I do in my mentality. Call me paranoid, whatever you want to call me. If a person is missing weight by that much and coming in super heavy, I don't know if it's calculated or if it's, you know, you just undisciplined and you didn't make the weight. Maybe he got more money than he's ever seen in the Hitchens fight on DAZN, and just blew up and didn't care. I don't know what was going on, but he looked horrible, and Keyshawn was getting off on him. So Keyshawn did his thing. Not much of a breakdown in terms of like the fight, so I can tell you just what happened, the surroundings, and give my post-fight. As far as the good, the bad, and the ugly, for the fight, I don't really have much bad and ugly. I guess the bad and ugly is Gustavo Lemos, who was perceived to be a threat. His stock dropped because he did nothing and got obliterated in the second round, and he got dropped. And like just the way he was falling looked goofy. He falling like Shaq. Remember when Kevin Hart was talking about how Shaq fall dumb? That's how Lemos was. His feet were together, and he's like trying to stand up. It just looks super dramatic, like it was a scene from a movie or something. It looked crazy, but you know, credit to Keshawn Davis. Lemos, this sets him back. After that performance, I don't know who's itching to see him back. As far as the card was pretty boring to me overall. The best fight on this would be Abdullah Mason, which was super wild first round. If you guys want me to make the Mason video and break down that fight, if enough of you guys put Mason or Abdullah Mason in the comment section, that'll notify me to make the video, and I'll have that up, you know, as maybe one of my next videos. So if you want to see that breakdown of Abdullah Mason's challenging fight, let me know. Type Abdullah Mason or Mason in the comment section. As far as Keyshawn, he did his thing, best performance of his career, and I'm out.